Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Andirani. I'm the CEO and founder of MazeBolt. We're a focused company in the DDoS world. We started the company in 2013 as an offensive cyber company. My personal background is from cybersecurity before that in Checkpoint, in Radware. And in my last role in Radware for many years, I founded an emergency response team that was kind of one of the pioneers of stopping DDoS attacks in real time. We worked a lot with the banks in the States and in Europe, primarily in Europe at the time. We pivoted the company in 2021 to a product company, to a radar, what we call radar testing today. And we got there through a very hard-learned lessons with our customers. We deal primarily with the banking sector, the insurance sector, the governmental sector, and the gaming sector. So just a little bit about the DDoS threat landscape. When I started dealing with DDoS in 2011, there were obviously a lot less digital assets at the time. Today, digitization has really increased, where you had first, let's say, web banking, then you had mobile banking, then you had different trading platforms. And because of all of these assets online, we've seen that DDoS attacks have increased significantly. They've become a weapon of choice for different cyber threat actors, whether it's in the commercial sector or in the cyber warfare sector. And recently we also saw, for instance, in Ukraine, that attackers were able to actually affect the Starlink network through DDoS attacks, where traditionally that wasn't possible. And essentially the economic incentive has really driven this industry to where it is today. And one of the reasons that the DDoS attacks continue to be so prevalent, which, by the way, today I think DDoS attacks are, in most surveys that you look at, either the first or the second most prevalent attack vector in cyber. And 45% of those attacks arrive in the United States, are targeting the United States, which means in 2022, almost 5 million attacks hit the US. In 2023, there'll be a lot more. And one of the reasons the attacks continue is because they're succeeding. The attacks that we work with companies, organizations that normally come to us when they've suffered a damaging attack. They had the best in breed DDoS mitigation, whether it was Akamai, Advanced Shield, Silverline, whatever the protection was. They were surprised when they were blindsided and their environment and services stopped functioning. And one of the reasons they succeed is because very few people really understand what the DDoS attack surface is. If you go and ask like 20 people, what is the DDoS attack surface? It will be, they'll have very different notions of what that is. Really what it is any service that you have online can be attacked by about 150 different vectors in the wild, in terms of like parent attack vectors, which means that you've got thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of potential points in your environment to disrupt services in your online services. And there's little to no awareness of the vulnerabilities that exist in this attack surface. People assume that if I've got Akamai or if I've got Radware, it's all going to work. And if it doesn't work, guess what? I'm going to call the vendor and then it's going to work and everything is going to be okay. That theory doesn't always work out well. And of course, it very often leads to an unexpected attack. What people have tried to do to date is you deploy a leading platform, whether it's in the cloud, scrubbing, CDN, or on-prem, or combination of both. You then once in a while do red team testing, where you can test maybe 10 or 20 different DDoS attack vectors in a 3-hour period. And then you take that report, you provide it to the vendor. If you're up, you're protected. If you're down, you're vulnerable. But actually, if you look at the typical attack surface, you're talking, as I mentioned, thousands or tens of thousands of potential entry points. You actually, in terms of the vulnerability assessment that you did, which many organizations think they did do with the red team test, you actually didn't check how effective your automated DDoS protection was. What happened was you were able to train your team to handle downtime. And even once you provide the report to the mitigation vendor and they say, okay, this is being closed, there's actually still a severe weakness left in your DDoS mitigation posture. And eventually, as I mentioned, it will land up that you'll be heavily reliant on an emergency response team at the end of the day, and you'll have an unexpected attack. This is actual data that I'm going to show you here from few 100,000 simulations that have taken place of DDoS testing. And what you'll see here in the vendors is these are actual customers from one of these vendors. And I didn't put the vendor name specifically, just to, I'm not trying to name and shame a vendor, but this is the actual vulnerability level that we discover the first time that we go to an organization. Now, when we ask organizations that we're in touch with, what is an acceptable vulnerability level in your DDoS mitigation posture? We get answers like, 1%, 2%, 3%. What we actually see the first time we run our testing technology in a customer is we see that there's anywhere between 35 and 18% vulnerability level in the entire protection posture of a company. That means if you've got multiple layers of DDoS protection hybrid models, typically in a very good case scenario, you've only got 18% vulnerability in the environment, but it gets as bad as 75%. By definition, what that means is that when you come under an attack, you just need to launch a couple of different attack vectors, and you're going to start affecting online services, production online services. That's a damning number. When we started with radar testing at the beginning of 2021, the first time we took these reports to the customers, they were in disbelief. The vendors that got the reports were also in disbelief, and in fact, we had very uncomfortable conversations with them. And in fact, we went to the point of actually deploying our technology in the vendors' labs and just getting them familiar with what we were doing. And it was really a shock to the system, and very quickly what we realized is that fine, we found this problem, but now we also need to help customers come up with a solution. Just to show what an attack can do, bandwidth.com is a good example. We're actually in touch right now with the telco in the US. One of the reasons they contacted us was because of the attack at the end of 2021 on bandwidth.com. They had 2 days of intermittent DDoS attacks that disrupted services. For those of you who don't know, bandwidth.com supplies RingCentral, Zoom, and other VoIP providers with infrastructure services. And that attack, actually, in terms of market cap from those 2 days, if you went into a shareholder meeting with bandwidth.com, the entire meeting was about DDoS attacks for the next 2 quarters. They actually had over $3 billion shaved off their market cap value. You can say, yeah, but the whole market went down. Yeah, the market went down like 40%. They went down 92% from such an attack. And what we see in terms of what we've done in terms of changing the paradigm in tackling this problem is previously everything was reactive because of these high percentages where you had to rely on an emergency response team. What we've done is we've created radar testing, which allows you to ongoing scrutinize your entire attack surface up to 24 hours a day if an organization wants to. It's non-disruptive, it's ongoing, it gives complete visibility into these tens of thousands of points of your attack surface. So if you've got 1,000 different potential services running in your environment, we scrutinize every single one of those services with over 150 attack vectors. We identify on every layer what attacks can slip through that layer of DDoS protection. And what that allows you to do is control the attack surface. You're able to control it. So it's not that you're just waiting to be attacked and then initiate the response team and then hopefully bring your services up as quickly as possible. And what we can see with this particular case study, this is an actual case study from a high security customer that started with us and not very quickly, but got down to, they're permanently now under 2% vulnerability. Another way, another particular customer, Payoneer, all the information I'm providing here, they've allowed me to use. Payoneer was a payment card company. They were a very small company, a payment processor company. So they provide supermarkets and all sorts of chains with, now I believe they also work with eBay and Amazon. They provide services of payment transactions. And if their services are down, essentially a supermarket can't work, or the cashier taking the credit card can't work. When Payoneer came to us, they were about, I think, 110 man company. They were coming down from DDoS attacks maybe every couple of weeks. They were losing a lot of cash because of that, and customers. That's actually when the idea for this type of ongoing testing came up, because we were doing testing with Payoneer every quarter, and with all the testing they were doing, they were still coming down. And what we saw over time is that to date they're attacked every couple of weeks. Definitely they're attacked, and they have almost zero downtime for the last few years now already. So the modern approach to preventing a DDoS attack is you have to understand how to manage the attack surface, the DDoS attack surface. Essentially every DDoS mitigation company today is deploying all your DDoS protection with zero understanding of what attack points are in your environment, or little to zero understanding of that. And essentially they're waiting for you to be attacked, and then you're going to hear something like, this was a weird event, this was a strange attack. For instance, in bandwidth.com, they got hit by a UDP attack. That's a very common attack. And they were told that this is a very uncommon attack. So, it's important to understand that your current DDoS protection today is being deployed just according to a best practice template, but no one actually knows if it works or not. Not the vendor, and probably not the organization. So you have to continuously map the attack surface. You have to continuously test the attack surface with simulations that are non-disruptive to your environment, be able to get that full coverage of your entire attack surface. You have to now this is the critical one. So especially if you're a CISO or CIO and you get a report of 2,000 or 3,000 vulnerabilities, that's not a good thing systemically in the organization, because now MazeBolt has created you a whole lot of new problems. So what we've done with time is we've found out how to tell the mitigation vendor or vendors how to focus on just a few fixes, that each fix potentially eliminates hundreds or even thousands of vulnerabilities. So that remediation part has become a very important part. We will actually be creating alliances with some of these mitigation vendors to automate this process. And once you've closed the vulnerabilities, you have to repeat. You obviously this has to continuously run. The bottom line, the old way of doing things with taking a leading protection mitigation system and doing red team once in a while, this is the type of, this is actually a screenshot from the graphs that we use. This is from the CDN, through the scribing center, through the CPE, through the web application firewall. So all that red, any attack vector, which is a target or service attack vector combination, will actually penetrate all those layers of security and take your infrastructure down. And then you'll have to start recovery. This is the traditional way of doing DDoS attack surface management. This is the traditional way of handling the DDoS problem. A more modern approach, which will enable full automated protection, is you don't really actually need a leading protection provider. You can take almost any DDoS protection and add it with a technology or a product that continuously scrutinizes the attack surface, patch those vulnerabilities, and you can find an ISP purchased always on DDoS system much more effective than maybe an Akamai or a Radware or an F5 that is exclusively in the DDoS realm. Because again, if you can't manage that attack surface, you have no idea if that technology is working. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Great presentation. especially right now, the biggest thing that concerns me with all these technologies and tools that we have available to us is implementation and resources to actually manage that. How do you talk to clients about resources, skill sets, et cetera, to help do that? Because obviously you've got to have some level of expertise, right?
Right.
Internally, and you can't outsource it all 100%. It's impossible.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about that element from a business perspective and a resource perspective when people are considering solutions like this going forward.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. First of all, every organization, of course, is different with the level of resources they have. From what my experience is in the DDoS world, most organizations don't take care of their own DDoS protection. They don't configure everything themselves. They're very, very, very dependent on upstream providers. Some of them, if they're in the cloud, they pretty much have to be. In some data centers, you're going to have on-premise equipment and stuff like that where you are more responsible for the configurations, especially in governments and stuff like that. And banks. I don't know about the States, but in Europe, a lot of the banks are still very much data center driven. So first of all, in terms of the resources required, there was an excellent lecture before that spoke about you need buy-in from the management. I think that's critical. You know, you need to we offer a proof of concept with every deployment we have. We offer it. Not everyone takes it, but we offer it. And I think that part is critical, explaining the requirements. Our requirements, we're an out-of-path deployment. Our detector is an out-of-path deployment, but it is a deployment. So every environment that you have and location that you have to have one of our detectors because the attack can go through multi-home systems and depending on how complex the environment is. So there is a discussion we need to have with the technical team. We're very forthcoming with all of the requirements. I believe our technology is an easy deployment, and I say that every vendor says that, but it really is quite easy because we have one challenge, and that's getting a mirror port. That's pretty much it. Once the management is connected, everything is self-configured. So, and we're an out-of-path deployment, meaning we don't interfere with any of the traffic that's coming in. So we can't damage any of your traffic. And yeah, this is always a challenge, you know. So they've run out of mirror ports, they need now a gigamon or whatever, but we always come up with a solution. We haven't seen that's been a blocker. There have been more and less and then another important thing is obviously the remediation. This is the big thing. So we recommend to all of our customers, let us do the talk with the mitigation vendor. We've tried very, very hard to maintain good relationships with the mitigation vendors. And we know how to work with them to configure these issues. And we strongly suggest the most successful, we've had, all of our customers, we've had almost 100% retention in our company. And the reason being is we are at the forefront of making sure that remediation goes according to plan. Because otherwise what happens is, like I said, we can come with 2,000 or 3,000 vulnerabilities. The CISO is stuck with a whole lot of vulnerabilities. He, at the beginning, you know, thinks this is great. You know, I've found a huge problem, goes and reports it. The report goes around, and then all of a sudden, things aren't moving with the vendor. And that's not a good situation for us to be in, the customer to be in, or the vendor to be in. So I'd say in the 95th percentile of the cases, we're able to solve these issues. Where we're not able to solve the issues, what we normally see is the vendor being replaced. It's very rare, but it happens. Thank you.